You're listening to the Save the Marriage podcast. Your marriage can be saved and strengthened if you have the right information. Join Dr. Lee Baucom as he explores ways for you to improve your relationship and your life, starting right now.
My guest today is John Assaraf. He is one of the leading high-performance mindset coaches in the world. He's a behavioral neuroscience researcher and has appeared on numerous shows like Larry King Live, Anderson Cooper, and even the Ellen DeGeneres Show. He grew a Remax of Indiana from a startup to 85 offices with tons of sales associates and sold over $4 billion in real estate a year. But that's not why he's here. He's here because he has also written 14 books, including 2 New York Times bestsellers that have been translated into 35 languages. And he is the creator of the Inner Size movement that has been featured in 15 movies, including the blockbuster hit The Secret. Also, he was in Quest for Success with Richard Branson and the Dalai Lama. In his personal life, he has 2 sons, lives in San Diego with his wife Maria, and in addition to being all about his ultra health and planet consciousness, he's a meditator, a skier, an ocean lover, and a public speaker. Today, he is the CEO of MyNeuroGym.com, a neuroscience-based company dedicated to helping individuals strengthen their mindset so they achieve their fullest potential faster and smarter. And that will apply to you both in the relationship realm and in the world of thriving. So let's jump into that interview. I think this is the first time I've done this. This is a session that we're going to put on both of the Thriveology and the Save the Marriage podcast. And the reason is John and I have already been chatting some, and the material is fitting for both. And so I wanted to make sure we get it on both because it's both about thriving in your life and things that you can apply to work on your relationship. And so we decided to make this a kind of a joint session. John Assaraf is my guest, and I bumped into John when he didn't know it because he was in The Secret years ago. I had his book, actually, and hadn't read it until I heard him talking on The Secret. And it was a phenomenal piece because he took what had become a very kind of metaphysical, it'll happen, into, well, you got to do something with the law of Goya. We're going to talk about the law of Goya. But lots of other pieces in there. And so I want you to just kind of listen in for both how this affects your life around your relationship and in terms of just your personal life, of how you make success all around you and how you find kind of your purpose that will drive that success. John, thanks so much for being here. And let's start with how you got to here.
Thank you, Lee. So, I'm glad you mentioned the movie The Secret. And, over 500 million people watched it. And a lot of people loved it, but a lot of people also felt like something was missing. And when I started to teach it, whether it was on Larry King or Ellen DeGeneres or any of the TV shows I was on, I brought up the law of Goya, that you have to add to the law of attraction, so to speak. And we'll come back to the law of Goya. But like many people here, I grew up in a dysfunctional family. Mother and father didn't like each other. They got married at a very young age, had my brother and sister and I. I was the youngest. They had moved us from Israel, where they had met, to Montreal, where there weren't any wars, and they wanted to get their children away from war-torn Israel even back then. And similar situation that's going on now for decades. And I went into school in Montreal, Canada. Had to learn English, had to learn French, quickly fell behind by 2 years all the other kids. Got in trouble, at school, got in trouble with other kids, got in trouble with the law, did breaking and entries, did illegal things. By the time I was 17, 18, I was in detention centers. And obviously my family was very concerned for my well-being. And I was heading down the wrong path, on the wrong train, picking up speed. And my brother, who has always loved me and cared for me, was concerned for me. And he said, hey, listen, there's a guy that he knew in Toronto, Canada, that was a real estate developer and had real estate offices. And at the time, I was working at a shipping department for Philips Electronics, making $1.65 an hour, hating my life. And prior to that, I had newspaper routes and I had flyer routes where I handed out flyers in apartment buildings, for like a penny a flyer, I would get paid to make money. And right around April 1980, literally, 2.5, 4.5 decades ago or so, my brother said, why don't you come to Toronto and meet this guy and maybe he can give you a better job. And so I'm like, yep, I'll come down because I hate my job. So I took the train, 5-hour train ride, 6-hour train ride. He picked me up. We went to lunch with this guy, and this guy was, seemed very cordial and nice. Didn't seem anything overly spectacular. He just started asking me a bunch of questions. Why was I getting into trouble? What did I want to achieve in my life? And at the time, I said to him, I want to make more than $1.65 an hour. I want to buy a car because I was tired of taking the bus and the subway everywhere. And I'd like to move out of my parents' house because at 19, it's like time for me to move out and like have room for myself and dating and things like that. And he said, that's great, but what else would you like to achieve? And I just had a blank, like I had nothing else I wanted to achieve. And you and I talked about this a little bit earlier, and he said to me, he said, would you mind answering some questions? I said, sure. What questions? And he reached into his briefcase and he handed me this document, and it was the 1980 goal setting guide. And I was like, I don't know what a goal setting guide is. Right. So he hands me the paper and he says, please answer the question. So I opened up the first page, and the first question, Lee, was at what age do you want to retire? I go, retire? My father's not retired. My mother's not retired. My aunts and uncles are not retired. Like nobody in our neighborhood's retired. In our apartment building, nobody was. And so I said to him, what am I supposed to put here? And he goes, pick a number. And I was like, what do you mean pick a number? He says, just pick a number. I said, well, is 45 okay? He goes, yeah, 45 is good. And I was thinking, that's 26 years from now. So I wrote down the first question, 45. Second question, this one always gets me. Upon retirement, how much net worth do you want to have? And I'm like scratching my head, going, what the heck is net worth? So I asked him, Mr. Brown, what's net worth? And he told me what net worth is. I said, what am I supposed to put there? Like my father earned $20,000 to $25,000 a year. We lived in an apartment that we were paying, I don't know, $300 a month for. So we didn't have money. My mother worked as a seamstress for, I don't know, $2, $3, $4 an hour. And so I said, what am I supposed to put here for this net worth thing? He says, well, if you're going to retire at 45, you're going to need money for 25, 30 years or more. So it has to be in the millions. I'm like, millions? That's like Hollywood is the only thing I could think about that makes millions, or the very expensive area in Montreal called Westmount. They make millions. I said, well, how much should I put? He goes, well, just choose a number. I said, is 3 million enough? And he goes, yeah, 3 million is a good place to start. So I wrote down $3 million. And then who do you want to help? Oh, I want to retire my mother and father when I can. Where do you want to travel? All over the world. What kind of car do you want? Mercedes-Benz 560 SL convertible. What kind of home do you want? 4-bedroom, 2 or 3 car garage, 2-story with a beautiful yard. The dog can run around the yard. So I just started to write stuff down, Lee, that was all made up, airy fairy, pie in the sky, no basis in reality whatsoever. By the time I was finished, maybe 12 minutes later, I hand him the document. He looks at the document and he says to me, this would be a fairly good life. If you could achieve this, would this be an ordinary life for you or extraordinary? I said, well, my God, that would be like extraordinary for sure. He says, well, the good news is this. Every one of these things that you wrote here is achievable. And I've done that and more. So I know how to achieve those. He says, I'm going to ask you one question. And the answer to this one question will determine whether you achieve it or not. And in the back of my mind, Lee, I was thinking, one question? Like, really? Seriously? One question is going to determine whether I achieve all of this? Retired 45, $3 million, travel the world, Mercedes, house, retirement, all that stuff. And he leans in and he says, son, Are you interested in achieving all of these things, or are you committed to achieve? And I'm like thinking back then, like, right, am I interested? Am I committed? Like what's the difference? So I asked him, feeling stupid again, what's the difference? He says, listen, son, he said, when people are interested, they come up with stories and reasons and excuses why they can't or why they won't. When somebody is interested, they do what's easy and convenient and not what it takes. He says, people who are committed upgrade their identity to match the destiny they want. They upgrade their beliefs of what's possible for them and what's possible to achieve. They upgrade their knowledge and their skills. And then they take action consistently. So they develop the habits that match the behaviors required to achieve their financial and non-financial goals. And it made sense to me. And then he looks at me and says, so now that you know, which are you? And Lee, I shared this with you a little bit earlier. I said, I don't know what it was, but I kind of like got a little excited. I said, well, in that case, I'm committed. And at 19, I'm like bopping around in the chair a little bit. And he looks at me, he says, good, in that case, son, I will be your mentor. And he reaches out his hand, expecting me to put my hand in his, like he's going to shake it. And so I do. And he's shaking my hand and saying, I'm going to be your mentor. And I go, well, what's a mentor? And he explains to me what a mentor was. And then I moved from Montreal to Toronto, literally 3 weeks later, moved in with my brother. He had me find the money and enroll into a real estate school at Humber College. I went from 9 to 5. I went back to school, even though I hated the idea of going back to school because I didn't think I was smart enough and I was afraid of failing. And afraid of being embarrassed and ridiculed and judged by him and my brother and even my family was wondering, why the hell are you moving to Toronto with no job? At least you're making $1.65 here. Now you're going to no job. And but I had to have faith that this man could help me and that I could help myself. And I got my real estate license on June 20th, 1980. And the reason I remember these dates, Lee, it was the first test I passed that I didn't cheat on. I cheated on just about every test in high school, including, the big tests. So I passed my real estate license, went to start in my real estate career with zero experience in marketing and selling and skills and strategies and what I should do every day. But Mr. Brown helped me create some structure to what I needed to learn, what I needed to believe, and what I needed to do. And then the manager in the office helped keep me accountable to what I needed to do. And in the first 6 months, I made $30,000 to me, which means he made $30,000 also because we were on a 50-50 split on any commissions that I earned. The next 12 months, by upgrading my knowledge and my skills even more and my identity, I grossed over $350,000 and I made $150,000 as a 20-year-old back in 1981. Huh. Now, why am I sharing these numbers with you? He taught me the power of your mindset and what you believe and your identity and self-image and overcoming your fears and upgrading your knowledge and skills and taking inspired action in spite of fear, taking inspired action in spite of being perfect, taking inspired action that he already knew would work because he had the evidence from before. So I wasn't just taking inspired action, but I was taking the right action in the right order at the right time because he gave me structure. And that was the beginning of my real estate career. And it's not like there weren't any, down times and I didn't get embarrassed or ashamed or ridiculed or judged or failed. I did. People slammed their door in my face. People swore at me when I was cold calling them saying, hey, this is John Asseroff from Allen Brown Real Estate Company. We have somebody who wants to buy a home in the neighborhood. Have you thought about making a sale? By the way, that's a script from 45 years ago that I just gave you. All right. That's how I practiced it every day. And practice makes permanent. So he had me practicing what to say. He had me practicing the skills I needed to be a professional real estate agent. And not that it was about money, but I wanted to earn money. He helped me upgrade my belief in myself. He helped me regulate, teach me how to regulate my, I don't feel like making 100 calls today. I don't feel like people rejecting me and hanging up on me and calling me names or shutting the door on me when I was door knocking at 10 below zero snowy Toronto. He helped me with the frames that I needed to see myself in and the situation in. And this was him upgrading my awareness and my skills, but backing it up with taking the right actions. And here's something he told me literally 45 years ago, which is still applicable today: how to have a great relationship. We know what you need to do. We know how you should show up. We know how to handle conflict. We know how to communicate. We know how to lift somebody up. We know how to do that, how to make more money, how to grow a business, how to write a book, how to lose weight, how to keep it off, how to build a business to 100,000, 500,000, a million, 10 million. We know how to. That's not people's problems today, especially not with AI. It's all the other stuff that we haven't been taught that is in our way. And there's really, three other things other than you lack the knowledge and skill of how to.
So I want to dig in. I want to go to those three things in a minute, but before we do, I just interesting to hear your framing, because I mean, first of all, you've got the things that we're not interested in, right? So that's just off to the side. You're not going to do anything about that. And then the difference between interested and committed, to me, is such a linchpin piece.
It is.
In so many ways. And you talked about your moving. And I'm sitting there going, okay, the commitment. You left your family where you had a job, you were with your parents, so probably have a little it easier.
Yeah.
He made you find the money to go to real estate school. He didn't give that to you. You had to commit to that. In some ways, you were kind of cutting off the other possibilities. You left and went and did that.
I shortened the story because the real story was he wanted me to go to real estate school. I said, I'm not going back to school. And we had like a 5-6 minute little beef on that, and he said, well, then you can't work for me. Fine, I'll go to real estate school. Right. They said, well, you need $500. I said, $500? I don't have $500. I got $50. And so I asked my sister, my brother, and my mother to borrow the money, which they did. My father didn't have any. He was a gambler. That beat the shit out of me as well because my school grades are so bad, and he was an alcoholic. So there's a lot of history within that story of my limiting beliefs, my self-image, my lack of knowledge or skills of how to, that he just kept challenging and says, well, listen, first you make decisions, then you find out how. So make a decision, you're going to real estate school. Make a decision, you're going to find the money, then you find out how. Make a decision to move here, then you figure out how. See, a lot of people look for the fact first, and he taught me that the fact comes after the commitment to make something happen.
It's what you're going to do, then how you get there, instead of all the how you, and the interested part. I've so many times people have told me how they enjoyed reading my book, and I'm like, okay, what did you do? I mean, that's always for me. Right. Tell me what you did, whether it's my books on thriving or my books on relationships and marriage. What did you? Because I don't really care that you enjoyed it. I mean, that's nice, but I don't really care if it doesn't hit to the point of what did you do about that, because that's where it matters to me.
Yeah, and I've been studying this for many, many years as somebody who's been a behavioral neuroscience researcher for a few decades and understanding a little bit about neuropsychology. What we've discovered, and earlier you and I talked about that before we're recording. Every brain functionally works the same. Like every electric car functionally works the same. Every gas car works the same. Every brain functionally works the same. When I got into the personal development arena, which was not by design, it just happened. people would read my New York Times best-selling book, Having It All, or my New York Times best-selling book, The Answer, or my number one bestseller, Inner Size. And I'd be wondering, like, what did you do? Like you. And so many people would go, well, what do you mean, what did I do? So, well, I gave you the process. I gave you how to stop this and start that. I gave you the process to achieve any goal you want. Why aren't you achieving that to be healthier, happier, have a great relationship, make more money, grow your business, write a book, travel the world? Like, why aren't you doing it? And like, I don't know. And here's what I discovered, and this may help some people. When you and I, are talking right now and people are watching or listening or sometime in the future, and they hear something that excites them. Oh, that makes so much sense. Oh my God, that's me, right? We resonate. It's like it feels good. And our brain is part of the brain called the nucleus accumbens or insula part of the brain. All it stands for is that's the part of your brain that releases the dopamine that makes you feel good. And when we release dopamine because we're engaged and curious and this makes sense, we feel like this is like motivation. Now, when we're listening, watching, reading a book, there's a part of our brain called the amygdala, which is the emotional control center of the brain. So when we're reading, watching, listening, participating, the hippocampus, the short-term memory part of the brain, and the amygdala part of the brain are active. This is good. I like this. This makes sense. And we have this short-term memory of what's going on, and we feel the present moment motivation. And that way we stay engaged. But what happens is we don't do things based on what we want to do, need to do, and should do. 95 to 98% of our behavior today, tomorrow, the next day after that, is based on what is conditioned, our programming, which is in the cerebellum part of the brain. So the question is, how do we go from the hippocampus to the cerebellum, which is also connected to the motivational circuit, the behavioral cortex, and the amygdala? Well, we know that just like you learned how to speak the English language or French language or Spanish language, any language you speak, it was spaced, consistent repetition. Alphabet, words, sentences, paragraphs, feedback loops, rest, repeat. How did you learn how to walk? Same process. How did you learn how to tie your shoes? Same process. How did you learn how to shave or put makeup on? Same process. How did you learn how to cut with a knife and a fork? Same process. You didn't learn it with one try, or 2 or 5 or 10. It was spaced repetition. What happens in the brain is when we do something once or even 10 times, our brain cells are firing, the electrical activity and the neurochemicals are released. And it creates a simple map, right? Like a simple map, almost like a map that's, drawn in pencil, right? But repetition reinforces patterns. So when I repeatedly, let's say, visualize an outcome that I want, I'm firing and wiring those neurons and reinforcing them. When I use empowering self-talk language patterns, I'm reinforcing, the positive, the constructive, the empowering language patterns to keep motivated. When I use self-deprecating self-talk, I'm not good enough, not smart enough, this will never work out for me, she, he, we aren't a match. Our brain not only fires and wires those patterns, but then our brain makes those patterns appear in front of us all the time and deletes and distorts anything that doesn't match that pattern. So when we in a relationship go, she always does this to me, he always does that, he always says that, that's just saying, here's what I believe to be true. And maybe it's true, but the more we reinforce any pattern, any emotional pattern, any thought pattern, any behavioral pattern, any expectation pattern, any result pattern, the more the pattern's reinforced. And the more our reality looks like, feels like, and is the map of our reality. So we do not see the world of possibilities. Our brain predicts the world based on the map of reality we have, and then it creates it in second by second frames. And then it reinforces.
I remember I read some research. It was looking at athletes and about them visualizing, going through a visualization of how they're going to do a course, do a game, hit the ball, whatever. And it turned out that the brain was actually taking in the same information as if they were actually doing that movement, right?
Exactly.
And so sometimes when I talk with people about the visualization stuff, they'll go, "Oh, I'm not into that visualization stuff." And I always say, "Well, actually, you are. It's just that you're visualizing your default belief system about what's not going to go right."
Yeah. When somebody says I'm not into that visualization stuff, every word, every sentence actually activates the occipital lobe in the brain with an image.
Hmm.
So when I say I want you to don't think about a red elephant, or don't think about a white elephant, or don't imagine that a snake is slithering towards you right now, wanting to curl itself around you and squeeze you to death. Just don't imagine that. And don't imagine jumping out of a plane. And don't imagine, somebody coming up behind you, putting a knife to your neck and slitting your throat. Just don't imagine any of that happening. Your brain has to see it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so every language pattern activates a visual pattern. And every visual pattern activates the same neurons and the same circuits as if it was happening in the moment. That's why we can think about something we don't want to have happen in the future, and it releases the neurochemicals in the present moment that cause us to have this fear, and we procrastinate or self-sabotage and don't take action. So you can't not visualize unless you have a condition called synesthesia,
Mm-hmm.
right? You cannot, that's very, very, very few people. But a lot of times, if we thought of, visualization as a neuromuscle, most people's neuromuscles are weak or disempowering or negative or destructive. And if you think about your physical muscle, like your bicep, your chest, your buttocks, your legs, if you think about, could you strengthen them if you exercised? And the answer is, well, of course I could strengthen if I exercise. Well, can you strengthen your neuromuscles if you exercise?
Let's talk some about that because that is what's one of your big concepts of doing the exercise. Tell what does an exercise look like?
There's a variety of different exercises. So let's say visualization, right? So let's say, I asked everybody, just go along with me. I want you to either keep your eyes open or closed. And let's start off with, 3 slow, deep breaths in through your nose slowly. And then out through your mouth as slowly as you can, like you're breathing out through a straw. Do that again 2 more times. And just focused on being relaxed, calm. Imagine you're 100% confident in yourself right now. Just imagine that you upgraded your identity to somebody who is extremely confident in himself or herself. It doesn't matter. And you have confidence and certainty, and you're bringing forth that character trait right now. And what I want you to see is that you can release or let go of any fear, any doubt, any worry, since we're visualizing and it's safe to do this right now. As you're feeling confident and certain in yourself, how are you sitting or how are you standing? If you really were to almost pretend you're a Hollywood actor or actress, being confident and certain in a role right now, right? And I want you to imagine 2 things. I want you to imagine a financial goal that you want to achieve. And I want you to see yourself talking to yourself with the confidence and certainty of somebody who's already achieved that financial goal you have. What are you saying to yourself? How are you acting every day, every week to earn the income that you want to earn? So be that role right now. You're confident, you're certain, you take action, you have determination, you have grit, you have resilience to overcome any challenge. And as a secondary element, I want you to imagine that your relationship is beautiful. First, your relationship with yourself. You have self-respect, self-love, self-discipline, with the confidence and certainty that not only are you a great partner, you have found the partner of your dreams, and you may be in a relationship with him or her right now. And I want you to imagine them in their best light. Imagine you in your best light. Imagine them in their best light. And imagine that together you have created and are creating a masterpiece with your lives as a partnership. So now you're earning the income you want to earn. You have the wealth you want to achieve. You have the relationship with yourself and with another person. And how does that feel? How does it feel? Go to the feeling. Doesn't it feel good? Doesn't it make you proud? Doesn't it make you feel like you can have impact and influence, and you can have time freedom and emotional freedom and financial freedom and a phenomenal relationship to build what you want to together in the world? Now, what is one thing that when you are this person, you believe to be true about yourself? Do you need to believe that it's possible? Believe that now. Do you need to believe that you are worthy of it and you're deserving of this relationship and this income and this life that you have? Believe that right now. I deserve it. I can do it. It's doable. And how does that feel? How does it feel? Doesn't it feel awesome? Now, we know that that's all possible right now. And we know that there's another version of you. Not that there's anything wrong with you, but there's another version of you that can be that person and have those things and feel those things. And what I'd like you to do is commit just the next 30 days for 3 minutes a day to do this exercise and see what comes up. See how the best version of you and your expectations start to change. So Lee and everybody else, that's called an exercise where I use self-talk, emotional regulation, visualization, mental contrasting. I use 4 or 5 different techniques, all right, that I call our exercises to fire neurons in your brain, activate the limbic system, the emotional control part of your brain, activate the motivational circuit in your brain, deactivate the doubt, fear, worry, stress, anxiety part of your brain, all through language and emotions and visualization. Imagine having that kind of self-talk and belief and feelings every day. That's what the Innercise book is about. That's what the Innercise app is about for health and wealth and relationship, career and business and finances and fun and experiences. And we learn from each other. And that's where I have all the world-renowned experts that we have as part of my faculty, to help do the research and then bring people the language, the emotional control, and the use of the different neuromuscles in their brain activated by specific techniques that we know are evidence-based and work, whether you're an astronaut, a homemaker, a Navy SEAL, a police officer, a CEO of a company that's successful. We know the patterns that we need in order to activate the right parts of the brain to bring the best out of ourselves. So now if I practice, guess what practice does? Practice makes permanent patterns. Now I'm shifting my identity, my beliefs, my behaviors, and yes, my habits.
You've said that phrase a couple of times, and so many times I hear people say practice makes perfect, and I always go, I mean, not necessarily.
Hold on, perfect practice makes perfect.
Exactly. But what you were pointing to is it does make things permanent. That is the building of those habits.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and the key, and maybe we can go back to what we talked about earlier, in the movie The Secret, we were talking about the law of attraction.
Yeah.
Right. And the law of attraction simply states that, you attract, what you think about most and what you believe. And I don't believe that, right? It's we attract, and we don't attract like a magnet does, right? In The Secret say, like attract like. Well, in science, a positive magnet actually repel.
Yeah.
Right. But let's think of attraction maybe slightly differently. And let's think of attraction as resonance. Think about this. Let's say you have a tuning fork. And let's say the tuning fork is 440 hertz. If I have a 512 hertz tuning fork and I hit that, on the table and it's vibrating at 512 hertz, and I have another tuning fork near me at 440, the 440 tuning fork will not vibrate because it's not in resonance. But if I have a 512 hertz here and a 512 hertz here, and I hit one of them, if they're in resonance in hertz, they will vibrate and oscillate at the same frequency. Mm-hmm. So first, let's number one, get ourselves into resonance with what we want. What is the one goal or two or three goals you want to achieve? Get clear on that. What do you need to believe? What do you need to feel? And then what do you need to do to achieve that? You need to know that. So you get yourself in alignment and resonance with thoughts, clarity, right? Emotions, feelings, and the behaviors. When we then apply the law of Goya, which is the get off your Asaraf law, and you take the right action in the right order at the right time, you create what I call a sympathetic resonance. And as somebody who studies neuroscience, but also quantum physics, sympathetic resonance in the quantum world basically works like this. Let's say I have a 10-foot wave in the ocean, and it intersects with another 10-foot wave at a perfect angle. It becomes a 20-foot wave. Let's say I have a wave in the ocean that's a 10-foot wave and it intersects with a 3-foot wave. That's called destructive interference. And the wave collapses. So we have to get our whole self, or whether you want to call it spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, or whether you want to call it, my vision, my goals, my strategies, my tactics, and my behaviors aligned. When we get into sympathetic resonance, then we're firing on all cylinders, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. But if we have limiting beliefs, if we have fears, if we have self-doubt, if we have anxiety, if we have worry, if we have all of the destructive interference pattern happening within us, we usually will self-sabotage and procrastinate and then do other things or do more of the same. So
let's drill in here a little bit, because some people listening, if it's particularly on the Save the Marriage part, are struggling to get those things in alignment, three things in alignment, and they don't realize it. Can you just kind of talk through what that might look like if you're looking at your, as you said it earlier, learning, believing, and doing, but the brain, the emotions, the actions.
Yeah, learning, believing, and doing. But before we have learning, believing, and doing, in saving the marriage, usually what happens, right, is people are focusing on the wrong outcome. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're, I'm not sure if this will work. Then your brain is going to look for things to prove that you're not sure if this will work. And it will point to all the things that you think won't make it work or cannot make it work. So let's suspend disbelief for just a moment if we're trying to save a marriage. And let's go back down to some fundamentals and say, if you could, let me rephrase it, if you could and your partner could save the marriage and you could have it the way you both want to, would you want to? If you could, would you want to? Well, if we could, I'd want to, but I don't want to hear I don't want to. If you could, would you? Well, yeah. Okay, great. Let's start off with that. Let's start off with, what would it look like if we did? So first, if we could, if we did, what it would look like is this. So we first create the picture of what this looks like, whether it's, she values me more. He values me more. He doesn't speak to me that way anymore. She doesn't put me down. She, whatever it is, right? So now what would the opposite of that be, right? We speak with each other with love and care and kindness. We respect each other. We lift each other up. We do things for each other. We do things with each other. We have independence and interdependence. Great. Let's look at that. Mm-hmm. And then we come back to now, because now we have a vision we're looking at of what we would like to create. And so now, if we want to use our brain better, first we get the clarity, step one. Step number two, what would I need to believe in order to make that vision together a reality? Well, I would need to believe, that it can be done. I would need to believe that we can do this. I would need to believe, write down, what do you need to believe? I would need to believe that, he can change or she can change, right? And do you really need to believe that? Or do you need to believe that you can accept her and she can accept you for who you are, just the way you are, like you did when you first got married? So what would you need to believe then? What would be some success ritual? What would be some baby steps towards that?
So I want to drill in here because you just filled in a blank. I think that I maybe assumed and shouldn't have along the way. When I work with people, I often ask them to put down their whys. Why are you working to save your marriage, right? And I'll say write down the list, and then I want you to mark off the ones of their fear ones. I don't want is a fear-based reason. I don't want to lose access to the kids. I don't want to lose half my retirement. I don't want to lose the house. Those are all
Yep.
I don'ts. And my thing is that those kinds of fears, we usually over time adapt and accept them. You get used to the idea. As opposed to the whys of I want, like I want to honor my commitment. I want to honor the promises I made. I want to show my kids how to rebuild a marriage. Those are the big whys that carry us on. And then I've been working on the what would you do pieces. How do you reconnect? How do you change yourself? But you pointed to that one in between of what would you need to believe?
What would you need to believe about the possibility of that?
Hmm.
What would you need to believe about yourself? What would you need to believe about the other person? Can he do this? I need to believe he can do this. I need to believe I can do this. I need to believe it's possible. I need to believe that together we can figure it out.
Yeah.
Let's come up with some fundamental universal beliefs, right? And yes, you have to have the emotional reasons, why we want to do this. And listen, having the consequences of it not working out is a good thing to have. Right? The emotional pain, the mental pain, the spiritual pain, the physical pain, the commitment pain, the self-image pain, the financial pain, write those down. If we don't, here's the reality we're facing, because we want to know what we're moving away from.
Right.
And then we want to know what we're moving towards. And then which are we going to focus on for the next 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, and 30 days? Part one, which are we going to focus on? Part one, we also have to come up with counter strategies. Now, this is critical, Lee. And what do I mean by counter strategies? Just because I say I need to believe this, just because I say I want to have this, just because I say I'm ready to, just because I've written down what the fear is or what the ramifications are, just because I've written down what the benefits are, behavior does not change in a day. And here's the neuroscientifically proven rule. It takes about 66 days to 365 days to change a habitual pattern. So if she and I have been having challenges for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, it ain't changing for good in this weekend's event or this course's 30 days. So we have to come up with, now, when I fall back on my old behaviors, when I fall back on calling you names, when I fall back on, dismissing you, when I fall back on my old habits, what is the cue to make me aware so I can course correct? So I want to come up with counter strategies in a way that we're in a partnership to help each other, lift each other up, not tear each other. See, he's like that. You're like that. That's what I can't, no, that's going to happen. So I have to self-regulate while I'm allowing you, since you're committed to change and you're allowing me to change, how do I do it in a way that lifts you up instead of tearing you down, proving why I want to divorce you in the first place? See, we're always looking for evidence of the current map of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need to do is look for evidence to lift you up. I need to look for evidence to help you. I need to be aware, you need to be aware. And if we're committed to the process, we will be in a totally different place in a month, totally different in 90 days, when we're committed to a new outcome, a new us. And that means I have to grow, and I want to, and I recommend you grow, and I want you to.
What I like about that, and there are a couple of pieces to it. One, so there is the action piece of our habits, how we dance the dance together that has to change. But what and you pointed to it, I just want to kind of highlight that. What I have often seen is people not taking action by gritting the heck out of their teeth and, kind of white knuckling it through, because they don't realize that there is a belief habit also.
There's a belief habit. Let me give you all a visual. Imagine, I'll give you a perfect example. Lee, you and I, talked before we started, doing the show. And I said, God, it's getting warm here in San Diego. My room is getting really hot. I need to turn on my air conditioner. So I closed the window, went to the thermostat, and I turned my air conditioner to 65 degrees. Now, it was around 72 in my studio when we were talking initially. And I said, I need to lower the temperature. Now, I didn't yell, hey, temperature low, temperature low. Like, I don't have that auditory capability yet with my thermostat.
Yeah.
So I can't yell at my thermostat to lower the temperature or increase the temperature yet. Probably will be able to shortly. There'll probably some voice activated thermostat. I have to go to the setting and turn it from 72 to 65. That sent a signal to the electrical system in the house, to the air conditioning system. The air conditioning came on, and when the room is at 65, it'll turn off because that's the setting now. Why is this important in our relationship? If you take a look at your last year together, that's your setting. So if you've had, if you've been suppressing, if you have been blaming, if you've been shaming, if you've been judging, if you've been avoiding, if you've been doing anything other than working on how to make the relationship better, your default setting right now is to do what you've done for the last year or 2 or 3 or 10 for some of you. So I have to reset my cybernetic thermostat around my relationship. It's no different, by the way, if you want to, people say, I want to lose weight. Well, no, you don't. You want to lose fat, not weight, right? You want to reset your fat set point. Every one of us has a financial set point that our brain keeps us stuck to. Every one of us has a relationship set point. Every one of us has a tolerance set point, a business set point. We have a set point for everything in our brain that is self-regulated by the autonomic nervous system. It's called automaticity. I am automatically going to think, feel, and behave in ways that I am habituated to thinking, feeling, and behaving, which means I also have an expectation of what the result is. So everybody, here's a rule for all of you, no matter what change you want. Ready? Here's what I call the John Assaraf 100-day rule. 100-day rule. Don't expect a result to last unless you've put in 100 days of effort. Period. End of story. My students that sign up for my Win a Game of Money Pro coaching program or business coaching program, I don't let them in my coaching programs unless they understand that consistency for 100 days is what creates automaticity. Let me repeat, consistency creates automaticity. And from a neuroscience perspective, it just means habits. Now, if you've been a certain way, expect a certain thing, whether it's your income, your weight, your relationship, and you want to change for good, not for a reason or a season, but for a lifetime. See, people either shift for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. People say to me, how come you were able to lose 45 pounds of fat and you've been at your ideal weight for 15 years? I said, because I didn't go on a diet. Of course, I changed my food plan, but I wasn't on a diet to lose 45, 50 pounds. I changed my self-image. I changed my beliefs. I changed my internal fat set point. I don't have to worry about going on a diet. I eat a specific way because that's my identity. I don't need to worry about drinking alcohol, even though I was an alcoholic, because I no longer carry the identity of an alcoholic. I no longer eat refined sugar because I no longer have the identity or the set point of eating refined sugar. So to me, I would eat 7 cookies, not 1. So I changed the mechanisms that drive the expectations and behaviors. And that's what inner size is all about, is I retrained my brain, refired to rewire. And if you're not prepared to invest 100 days into a better outcome that you get better from there for life, don't even try. Just say, you know what, this isn't for me. And then be a settler, settle for what is. And then here's what I can promise you. If you don't pay the price of discipline today, you will pay the price of regret tomorrow. Jim Rohn.
You're right back to that interested versus committed, right? I mean, if you say, yeah, I want to do that, and you say, okay, 100 days of it. I don't think I can do 100 days. Okay, you may be interested, but you're not committed.
Great. So here's what I would say. If you're not prepared to do 100 days, will you give something 30 days, 100% of your effort? And then make a decision for another 30 days after that. So here's what happens. Let's reduce it to the amount of time and effort that you're willing to give, but here is the rule, okay? We always have 4 choices when we're looking to achieve a goal. Choice 1, I'm not prepared to do anything it takes. Choice 2, I'm only prepared to do some of what it takes. Choice 3, I'm prepared to do most of what it takes. Choice 4, I'm prepared to do everything it takes. So which are you? Interested or committed? And are you going to do some, none, most, or all of what it takes? Now, if the goal that you want to achieve, save your relationship, build your business, make more money, 5x your income, if you're going to do most of what it takes, you'll achieve some more success. I'll give you that. But you won't achieve the vision and the goal. So there's a law of cause and effect in the world. For every effect, there's a cause. And for every cause, there's an effect. So what we know is if you want to make $1 million a year, for example, or you want to have a great relationship, we know what the darn behaviors are. We know what you need to believe. We know what you need to do. But if you're not willing to do it, that's okay. That's your life, your choice. But then don't have the expectations, because you're going to be disappointed your whole life. So just be realistic and just be okay with, you know what, I'm not the do whatever it takes type of person. Great. Then don't have the do whatever it takes vision and goals. That's not the mental masturbation, okay, of hoping, wishing, dreaming of achieving these outcomes that you want, because you're going to be afflicted with the drug of choice for most people. And you become addicted to hopium. I hope he does this. I hope she does. I hope we do this. I hope this happens. I hope. Listen, I love people who have hope, because there's an opening. But nobody's coming to save you.
Mm-hmm. Which it kind of bridges over to a point. One of the big things I talk about, a core message from my program, is you can't control your partner,
Right.
but you can choose how you show up. And I wonder what that looks like from a brain perspective. How do you choose that showing up?
When you look in the mirror, what do you want to see? What do you want to feel about yourself? Do you want to look in the mirror and go, I'm a go-giver and I'm a go-getter. I love who I am. Can you look in the mirror and say, I trust you? I trust you to do what you say you're going to do. I trust you to be loving, caring, kind. I trust you to have resilience. I trust you to have grit and determination. If you don't trust you, why should somebody else?
Hmm.
So, what is the character, or what are the character self? Be that.
Hmm.
Just be that. And let me give everybody a little exercise to do. Imagine that you're in the town you live in, city, town, whatever, and you see one of the Hollywood actors or actresses in your local restaurant or coffee shop or bakery. And you look at them and they look at you and you recognize them from television or from the Oscars or the Academy Awards or whatever the case might be. And they walk over to you and they go, oh, hey, I'm so-and-so. I know who you are. And they say to you, listen, they show you this, by the way, this is my exceptional life blueprint. They show you this script and they say, listen, we just looked over this script. It's written by one of the best Hollywood writers, and it's going to be produced by Meryl Streep and Russell Crowe and Steven Spielberg. They're going to be co-producing it. And we just read this character in here, and you look like you look like this character. We're wondering, if we paid you $1 million, could you learn the script? And if we gave you a coach to help you act better, and we showed you what to do, would you be interested in maybe playing this role for 5 minutes and being the script and becoming that role? And you'll come to Hollywood in about 6 months, and we'll do the filming then. What would you say? And most people go, oh, wow, I'd be scared, but it could be exciting and $1 million. Sure, I'll learn how to do this. Well, let's say you said yes. And then you got this, and it had a character, confident, certain, kind, loving, caring, non-judgmental, accepting, right? Smart, could research, could be resourceful in the absence. Let's say it showed you, here's the character traits of this person. You've never seen this. Could you learn those character traits so that 6 months from now, you would not need the script? Well, how would you learn those character traits and the script? Would you read it 2 or 3 or 400 times? Would you practice it until it became, normal and comfortable for you? So you'd start off as a clumsy beginner, and then through practice, you'd create and reinforce new patterns, and those new patterns that were reinforced would become habitual automatic patterns that you could call upon in a nanosecond because you practiced perfectly to create a subconscious pattern that could activate and reinforce itself through spaced repetition.
Yeah.
So who do you need to be the best version of you? And let's practice that starting today.
Yeah.
And let's start to inner size. That's what inner size is. It's not fake it till you make it. That's baloney. Your brain knows that you're faking it. No, we practice till we become it. We add these new character roles, these new expectations, these new beliefs, these new behaviors to match the vision and the goals we have. Remember, the first thing Mr. Alan Brown told me, you have to match the identity with the new destiny. So you have to almost create an alter ego of yourself initially for it to become you, right? I don't remember the name of the actor, but Cary Grant, the actor Cary Grant, said, I played the actor Cary Grant so much I became him.
Yeah.
George C. Scott in Patton. If you ever saw George C. Scott in Patton, oh my, he was Patton.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell the difference between the actor and the act. Russell Crowe in Gladiator, any of the actors, they become the role, become the person capable of earning the money, having the business, writing the book, having a great marriage, having, self-love, self-care, self-respect, self-esteem. You become that and you level your game up.
And a little piece that you put in there is so important because people push against this, and that is the awkward piece. It's going to be awkward in the beginning. Anytime you do something new, I've had people say, "Well, I can't act like that with my spouse. I can't talk like that with my spouse. I can't do whatever with my spouse. It would be awkward." To which I said, "Have you ever watched a kid taking his first steps?
Yeah,
they are awkward, but guess what? They get better."
Yeah, there's a framework in neuroscience is that for some of us, depending on what it is, we are what we call as unconsciously incompetent. That's when we don't know that we don't know or that we're not good at something because there's no need for it. But then when we're like, I want to make progress, we then realize that we're consciously incompetent. I realize, oh my God, I'm not thinking the right way. I don't know what to do. I'm not skilled. I don't feel good enough, smart enough, worried enough. And I realize I'm consciously incompetent. And then if I want to get better, I go, well, how do I create conscious competence? Now, this is where practice comes in, right? This is where the perfect practice comes in. Now, if I practice what I need to think and feel and do, I can become good at this. And through spaced repetition, now I can become unconsciously competent. So now I can fix, the Rubik's Cube, right? I can go from not solving it to solving it, right? I can go from not knowing how to yarn, into making a beautiful sweater. I can go from not knowing math to understanding how to solve math. I can go from not knowing a new language to knowing a new language. I can go from anything that I'm consciously incompetent to with perfect practice. And again, spaced repetition is important. We need to give ourselves a break for our brain to synthesize and to coordinate the new information and move it from the hippocampus to the cerebellum. And then with repetitiveness, 100 hours, 200 hours, 500 hours, 1,000 hours of practice perfectly, then I become unconsciously competent. The problem is most people are unconsciously competent, in most areas of life.
Yeah.
Because we learned from our parents, our teachers, our environment, that we reinforced that, and we didn't know how the brain was wiring itself. We didn't know, but now we know. And that's why I got so fascinated with, inner size, is how do I, rewire my own brain? How do I deliberately and consciously evolve myself?
So one way of phrasing that is you're unconsciously competent in getting exactly what you're getting now. And if you want something different, we got to go back to the
We have to, we just have to, change some of the internal, right, roadmap. And then our brain will go to work, as brilliantly as it has all these years.
So, John, you've been more than generous with your time. So I don't want to take up more of it, except for I want you to make sure that people know how to find. I downloaded your app earlier today, but to find the app, we've got. I'll put the link to your free book in the show notes. But how else can people contact you?
Sure. So listen, you can hop on to johnasaraf.com to see some of the stuff that I'm doing there. You can go to our main website, myneurogym.com. But also we have an inner size app, as you mentioned, with over 600 brain training inner sizes to train your brain on a relationship with yourself, on a relationship with another, to train your brain on financial success, wealth, career, business, sales, leadership. And in the app, I am your mindset coach and mental fitness trainer with these inner sizes. But we also have a world-renowned experts in our expert section with videos and training programs to end self-sabotage and to end procrastination and to stop, not achieving your goals and to start knowing how to achieve goals versus setting goals. So there's an amazing app, and you can go to innersize.com, or you can go to the App Store, and you'll see there's 1,100 five-star reviews already there. And then I'm on social media, whether it's Instagram, and it's my handle is at John Assaraf. And if you put in, at JOHNASS, it'll pop up. The rest, ARAF. So there's a lot of my content on YouTube. So I'm all over social media. And we have a lot of free events that we do to help people with money or with business or, achieving their goals. And we're really big now on teaching people how to use AI to achieve their goals, and really using the tools that are life-changing as well. So that's how to reach us, Lee.
All right, John, and this is applying to, if you're working on your relationship, all of this applies. If you're working on your life, all of this applies. So, John, you've been more than generous with all that information. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Lee. Have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
You've been listening to Save the Marriage podcast. For more information and help, please visit us at savethemarriage.com.